Hi, welcome back. In this video, we're going to learn about for loops in Python. As we said earlier, there are two types of loops in Python. One is the while loop, which is the one we saw earlier, and this is the for loop. They both help accomplish the same thing to basically run a statement or a bunch of statements repeatedly, but it's just the syntax is different, and the for loop is slightly more sophisticated in the features that it offers. We'll just take a look at some examples. Let's switch to our IDE and now create a new file, and we will save it as forloops.py. Let's say we want to do the same example as we saw with the while loop, right? So this example where we defined a list and then we went through the list and then displayed all the values. We're going to see how we can do it in a for loop. So we'll just start by defining a list: 10, 20, 30, and 40. With the for loop, you don't need to define an index like we did with the while loop. You could do something like for number in list 1 colon print number. I'm just going to run it and then I'll explain what's going on. So we displayed 10, 20, 30, and 40. So instead of defining an index, here we're saying for each number is just a variable, in list 1, print the number. So what Python will do is when it runs for the first time, it will assign the first number or first value or item in the list, which is 10, to number, and then we display that. And in the next iteration, 20 will be assigned, and then 30, and then 40. And after that, there's no condition here, right? But Python is smart enough to know that it is done going through the list, and it will basically stop executing. So as you can see, for the same example, the for loop is definitely even more elegant than a while loop. So depending on what you're trying to do, it may make sense to use a for loop or a while loop in your programs. It's just that for this example, this is much more cleaner, and Python is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. And there are other cool things you can do. I'm just going to print something to kind of separate the different outputs we're going to see, right? So this has no significance to the loops, just to separate the above output from the next example we're going to see. Let's say I want to display all the characters. String 1 equals are more meaningful, right? Name equals, let's say, Patrick. And I want to display every single letter in Patrick instead of displaying the whole name. I could do something similar like this: for character in name colon print character. So for each character in the string name, just print the character, right? So save it and then run it. We got Patrick, each character displayed individually. So Python does the same thing, right? Pick the first character, assign it to the character variable, and display it. And it goes through the name until it's done. So that's that. There are two other things that I wanted to show. Again, I'm going to do this to separate the output out. And then there are two break and continue keywords that can come in handy in loops. Again, I'm going to show break and continue for the for loop, but they are applicable for the while loop also. Especially break is very applicable for while loop. So let's say, again, I have this list, but I want to display up to 30 and I don't want to display 40. Let's see how to do that, right? I'm just going to define another list and then say 10, 20, 30, 40 for number 1 in list 2, or maybe number 2 in list 2, if number 2 equals 40, break, and then I'll just display number 2. Now this might be a little bit confusing, so I'll explain what's going on before we execute it. So we are defining a new list, list 2, that has 4 numbers, 4 values. We're saying for number 2, which is a new variable, right, in list 2, what Python's going to do is every time the for runs, it's going to pick one value out of the list and assign it to the number 2. And then here we're saying if that value is equal to 40, break. And then we're just printing number 2. Now we'll run it and then we'll explain more. We got 10, 20, 30 displayed, and then that's it. So what happens here is when this condition is true, number 2 equals 40, we're doing break. Break essentially means just go out of the loop. Don't execute the loop anymore. I can add like any more numbers to this, 50, 60 or something, and then run it. I'll get the same output, because when it reaches 40, the loop basically breaks. It's not executing anymore. Now that's how break works. You know, when you encounter something or when a particular condition is true, we're saying just break out of the loop. We could do like a continue also, right? That works a little bit differently. And we're gonna see that example next. So let's say I want to display or define a new list for this example, 10, 20, 30, 40, and then 50, and maybe 62, why not? And this time we're going to say for number 3 in list 3, same condition. We're just going to see the difference between a break and a continue. If number 2 equals 40, continue. And then I'm going to print, sorry, it's number 3. I apologize. Number 3. So we defined a new list with the same values. We're defining a new variable, number 3 in list 3. If number 3 equals 40, same condition as here, but we're saying continue instead of a break. And just notice the indentation difference here. I should have explained this before. This is indented here, so only the break statement applies for this condition, right? This print is going to execute regardless of whether this condition is true or not. Same thing here. This print belongs to the loop, whereas this continue belongs only to the if. Similarly, this break belongs only to the if. Just remember that indentation rules, right? Indentation decides which statement is part of which block. So because of the indentation, the continue belongs to the if, whereas the print belongs to the for. Let's execute it. And in this example, we got 10, 20, 30, 40 is not displayed, but 50 and 60 are. So when we hit 40, when we hit continue, it basically goes to the start of the loop again. Continue basically means go to the start of the loop. So when it's 40, we execute continue, so we never get to this print for 40. So for 40, we're not displaying it. Go back here, and then Python will now assign 50. Is 50 equals 40? No. Is 60 equals 40? No, right? So they get displayed, whereas 40 did not get displayed because we just go back to the start of the loop for continue. Whereas in break, we just completely break out of the loop. So that's the difference between a break and continue. So depending on what you're trying to do in the program, if you want to just skip that particular iteration, you will use a continue, or you will just want to come out of the loop altogether, you'll use a break. We covered quite a bit in this video. I highly recommend you to practice these examples, especially the break and continue, to make sure you fully grasp this idea before we move forward. Because in the next video, we're going to look at nested loops. I really want you to be very comfortable with this before you move on to the nested loops. So I hope you found this useful. Please keep practicing. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.